are part of this program, and this digital badge program is going to be one of the first ones. So as we take this program forward, you can see there is a combination of a powerhouse of different, cybersecurity schools and programs. So Scott gave us the opportunity to work together to start that, and then we are already in discussions with other schools. Some of that we'll see in the next coming months. I think, this cyber policy and policy tech, these two issues are relatively new in the technology and engineering space. You can see all the ramifications of Twitter, of the Facebook, and different social media streams, fake videos. You have, the fake news, all that stuff. I mean, it's really roiling up the daily life. But most importantly, I think it's understanding of the policy making and the different components that go into there. I think this is a really emerging field. If you think about it, policy making is not new, but policy in tech is relatively new. So we want to make sure that we have a thorough understanding of that space and how the public-private partnership can go and take it forward. So with that, Scott, I hand it over to you, and please take it away. Thank you.
Hear me? There we are. Thank you so much, Val. How are we doing? Woo! Save the best for last, right? We don't have a mascot, but we have caffeinated energy. That counts for something. I'm Scott Shackelford, as you can tell, a professor at Indiana University. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you guys. As Val said, we are thrilled about this new partnership, this new digital badge program that we're launching. And as you're going to hear from the rest of the panelists, I think there's a lot of utility that educational institutions can provide as we bridge these divides between the public and private sectors and go after some of these challenges that we've been hearing about throughout the day. Technological challenges, AI, quantum, regulatory developments, the global crackdown on big tech alone. My goodness, I think we're going to have plenty of fodder for some really good discussion here. So what I'd like to do to kick things off, if it's okay, is just to give each of our distinguished panelists an opportunity to say a little bit about themselves and their institutions, how they're getting involved in this particular intersection of the public and private sectors, and how we can manage these issues that we just referred to a little bit more effectively, especially in this incredibly tense geopolitical moment that we're living through right now. So maybe, if it's okay, we'll turn to you first, Chris, and we'll go down the line from there.
Thanks, Scott. So want to say thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And I actually went to Indiana University for first few years of my bachelor's degree. Transferred back to Canada after that, but
we won't hold that against
forgive me, please. So I'm the managing director of the Cybersecurity and Privacy Institute at the University of Waterloo. It's located about an hour outside of Toronto in Canada. At the Cybersecurity and Privacy Institute, we focus on a lot of the cutting edge research that's happening. I'm really happy that there was an emerging technologies panel before me. Some of the research that's happening there revolves around AI and security, the poisoning that that they talked about, post-quantum cryptography and quantum encryption, and obviously edge computing, intrusion detection for automation. So we have about 60 researchers as part of our center. Those researchers, the main foundation of them is computer science and electrical and computer engineering. They are consistently ranked around the top 15 in the world as far as research output and technology development and commercialization. But I think what makes CPI relatively unique is our breadth. The privacy side, the surveillance side, we incorporate a lot of the research from arts. So it includes environment, economics, legal, policy, sociology. And it's not just window dressing. They often interact and collaborate with the deep technical knowledge within our computer science and engineering faculties. And so my job there is to engage with private organizations who have interests in solving challenges, especially next generation cybersecurity and privacy challenges. Engage with them in research, engage with them in helping develop a commercializable product, and also supporting upskilling and training. Happy to talk a little bit more about everything, but I think that's enough of an introduction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Colin. And Diana, so same question to you. Any introductory remarks you'd like to offer about what your what you're up to and any of it that perhaps might lead off of what you just heard in the terms of the interdisciplinary aspects here.
Yeah, so first I want to keep the Indiana University party going because I actually started my academic career there as a professor. So
Oh, well,
we'll talk about that later.
I didn't realize that.
Right now, though,
Everybody's
I,
leaving, though.
say something about Bloomington, but we'll talk later when we're not mic'd up. So right now, I am the Vice Provost for Research and Innovation at American University in Washington, D.C. And my job there is to focus on advancing the research agenda across the university and to think about how we can link our academic offerings with the research and the development that our faculty members are doing to approach challenges in a more comprehensive and interdisciplinary way, and in a way that links policy, practice, and thought development through academic work. At AU, we have a number of different cybersecurity programs, but I want to focus on one that I think really touches on what this panel is about, and that is our cybersecurity certificate in our School of Public Affairs. We are fortunate to have a top 10 School of Public Affairs, the top public affairs school in the district, and we focus very heavily on taking individuals who are making their way into careers in state and local government, but also in federal government, who will be the people who are actually making the policies that we all have to abide by, and helping them to understand basic cybersecurity fundamentals, but also how the policy shapes and drives those. We have a program that crosses other schools within the university. We think very much about the national security enterprise and infrastructure, and how do we not just think about policy from a national perspective, but from a global perspective, and how that shapes the way that the technology is used, and just thinking about advancing both research and academic programs in that space. So I'll stop there, but that's really what we're all about at AU.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Diana. And please, Rob, over to you.
So my name's Rob Dennis. I'm also from AU, but that's Augusta University.
There
Same
can
but
be
different.
only one.
And so by way of introduction, I'll be brief. But 5 years ago, we came out to this facility and we met with Marcel Johnson and Will Garrett and a few other folks here, because we knew we were going to be getting not only Army Cyber Command relocated from Fort Meade to Fort Gordon, Georgia, but $106 million in cash, not bonds, cash from the governor's office to stand up the Georgia Cyber Center. And the charge of the Georgia Cyber Center was to work with with industry and government and academia to have a location where they could all coalesce and come up with unbiased policy, provide a home for academia to work, not just the university system, but the technical college system as well, to work hand in hand to provide content opportunities, and also have training and tabletop exercises by way of the state's cyber range being hosted on site. So we have 320,000 square feet to get after that mission, and we're thrilled to be here. And I guess we made that trip out to San Antonio 5 years ago, and I think it was at the same time we went up to Waterloo and looked at y'all's facility and how y'all had put things together. I'm sorry I don't have a connection back to Indiana, but
We'll
I'm
get you
happy
to
to be
Bloomington soon. Yeah. Thank you so much for that wonderful first round of introductions. And I think we've already heard a couple of themes that I'd like to unpack a little bit more, and then would welcome, questions, comments from the audience as well. There's a number of things going on here, I feel like. On my own, at IU these days, on my own beat, I do a few things. I direct 2 research centers. One's more focused on theory, and one's more focused on practice. So the theory one is the Ostrom Workshop, which is named for Lynn Ostrom, who was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Economics, an IU faculty member who stayed in Bloomington her entire career. I'm just kidding, completely kidding. But that's focused on governance challenges across frontiers and developing a number of methodologies to better understand them. And also direct our Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, which is much more focused on assessments, compliance, consulting, really hands on the ground, boots on the ground, hands-on learning. And I'm wondering, in your own vantage points, how you try to bridge those two areas as well, theory and practice, and at each of your universities, what barriers you've run into as you've tried to do that. That could be disciplinary barriers between schools, because we know a lot of people are for interdisciplinary education, for degrees, for research, but in the academy, that can be easier said than done. And also barriers as you've tried to reach out to other stakeholders, including the private sector. So pretty open-ended, and we don't have to take it in the same order if we'd like to switch it up, but Colin, would you like to start, or Diana, would you care to? I'm flexible. Diana, please, ladies first. Yeah.
So, we are very fortunate that we have an administration that very much believes in interdisciplinary work. And so we are always looking for opportunities to work across the schools and to attack challenges from the problem base as opposed to the disciplinary base. That being said, one of the challenges that we face, and I think that this is consistent across all institutions, is that the reward mechanisms, the promotion and tenure mechanisms for faculty members are very much disciplinary based. And so it can be very challenging to figure out how to support particularly early career faculty members as they want to drive forward in interdisciplinary work, but making sure that they are still able to meet their goals and move forward in their academic careers. And so that's something that we're actually working. I work very closely with our Dean of Faculties, for example, to think about our promotion and tenure guidelines at our institution to make sure that we are incorporating that kind of assessment and incentivize interdisciplinary work. So we're also providing funding. Out of my office, I provide funding to support interdisciplinary, both in terms of the academics, but also very much tying theory and practice together and making sure that our faculty members are very much entrenched in the community, however they're defining community, to do their work and to see real immediate impacts.
It's really, really helpful, Diana. Just a super quick reflection. I think leadership from the top is really just essential. And we had that similarly at IU. Our former president was our former chief information officer before he was president. And so we had a lot of support from his office, from the provost, in making, for example, our program in cybersecurity risk management happen, which was a tie-up between law, business, and computer science. But I'm wondering, Colin, Rob, from your guys' perspectives, have you also enjoyed, that similar leadership and support from the top? And if not, have you found other ways to make these interdisciplinary partnerships work?
So we're fortunate at the University of Waterloo. So CPI, the Cybersecurity and Privacy Institute, is a research center deeply embedded within University of Waterloo. So one is the other. We just represent an arm. The way the leadership at the University of Waterloo has supported at least applied and interdisciplinary research, theoretical, I think, is just a common part of almost any university. So I don't necessarily need to touch a bit on that, but I think from the applied angle, Waterloo has some rather unique points of view in how they support. The first is their intellectual property policy. At Waterloo, we have a creator-owned IP policy, meaning that any new ideas, patentable, copyrightable, that's developed at the university, either by students, by faculty, or in partnership with private organizations, is not owned by the university. So in that sense, there's no limits to how we can apply our work, our technical work, our interdisciplinary work to the real world. And the other is the funding for our centers. So as a center, there are 8 university-level centers at Waterloo that represent different arms and strategic strengths. We get centralized funding to support interdisciplinarity, to support our students, to support our faculty, to outreach to private organizations and all that stuff. And that really opens the doors for us to take what's happening at Waterloo and disseminate it, take what's happening and try to link it to something in the real world. And that's something we do a lot because of our IP policy. So companies are very willing to come to Waterloo and work with our researchers and take what's happening and applying it to their organizations. And, you know, I feel quite fortunate to be able to do that.
Thanks a lot, Colin.
I'll say at Augusta University, we haven't been as progressive as University of Waterloo with IP, but hopefully we'll get there. I will say we've received remarkable support from leadership. The School of Computer and Cyber Science didn't exist 5 years ago. Today it has, I think, 6 undergraduate degrees, 3 masters, and this past fall we started a doctoral program. And so that's in the public university system, at least in Georgia, that is lightning fast. And it only happened because funding was extended to a dean that we were able to hire and bring in to make strategic hires. And we're competing against a lot of top tier schools for that talent. We are fortunate, I had mentioned earlier, that with Fort Gordon, Georgia and Army Cyber Command so close by, that we have access to a lot of talent. And so where you hear a lot of schools or programs talk about adjunct faculty, we don't have as many of those as we have professors of practice. And so these may be folks who don't hold a terminal degree, but they have the requisite skill sets or their SMEs in their respective fields that can contribute to a larger body of knowledge. There is a balancing act in how we make sure that we maintain accreditation and have the right balance of those folks. But that leadership investment has paid real dividends. It was a way for us to acknowledge the investment that the state had made with the $106 million. And we also really, the state wanted to acknowledge, and I think we did as a university, Fort Gordon was putting $2 billion in infrastructure in place. And they were very interested in making sure that we were getting ready to help with workforce development. And so to that end, they've provided subject matter experts working with some of our industry partners on K through 12 education, and we created a pathway for the Richmond County, really for the Georgia Department of Education. But we've also worked to articulate college credit and coursework done at the technical college system level so that it seamlessly transfers into the university. And there are not too many examples, at least in the state of Georgia, where you have a technical college and a university co-located where that coursework has been articulated that way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. We don't have a lot of time, so this next one we're going to try to do a lot with. And then again, we'll open it up to see if there's other folks who have questions, okay? So kind of a twofer here. One, obviously, as we've heard on this panel and before the previous panel and really throughout the day, you know, applied opportunities for students, kind of service learning opportunities and otherwise are just really important to both practice what we're preaching and also, frankly, just address a lot of organizations and communities in need because of the shortage that we're seeing here, right? We've tried to do some of that at IU with our new cybersecurity clinic. Just last week, there's a new partnership with Purdue. We do partner with Purdue on some things, believe it or not, including now doing hundreds of cybersecurity assessments around the state over the next few years. But at the same time, as you see in the title of this panel, we have to educate students about these really, you know, major trends in geopolitics that are influencing a lot of what we're seeing at the local level. And I'm just wondering, kind of from each of your vantage points and your experiences at your universities, how you try to balance those two things, going local, going applied, but also kind of keeping in mind those kind of higher level geopolitical headwinds, right? So anybody can feel free to start. I'm flexible. You want maybe take the first shot again, Diana? That'd be great. Please feel free.
So let me address the two different parts. One is we have lots of practicums. I mean, you know, we're in DC. I think every university in every location has some kind of practicum where the students are working with real world organizations as clients and they're developing solutions that can be implemented right away. So we actually do that in programs, in academic programs. We also do it out of my office. I develop customized practicums with clients, and we pull students from across different programs. Sometimes we do it and run them as either internships or as research jobs, so that they are able to do it above the coursework that they have, so that they don't have that restriction. And so that's one thing that we do. On the geopolitics piece, and this is something that I think we do really well, is that we have what we call skills in management institutes. We call them SAMIs. And they run 2 Saturdays in a semester, and the students can sign up for those, again, above and beyond their degree requirements, but it gives them an opportunity to be introduced to some of those issues. I'm actually teaching one. I don't normally teach, but I'm teaching a SAMI next Saturday if anybody wants to come to DC and hang out, so that we can introduce the students to these kinds of policy issues.
Thank you so much.
So, I just, as it relates to geopolitical challenges, I'm not so well versed in that, but the opportunities that our students have where they have that real world experience. When we stood up the Georgia Cyber Center, we also stood up a SOC. And so that SOC to date monitors all the Augusta University traffic, as well as AU Health. So we have our own health system. It's about a $1.2 billion enterprise, but it is a lot of traffic. And so we're able to capture students who come in and do internships in the SOC, and they really get to see a lot of stuff from the distant end that they would not get to experience otherwise. We have internship programs. Clearances, I think, are always a challenge, but certainly as we have soldiers who are transitioning out of the Army, or some who are staying in the Army who are interested in degree completion, they do go and work for some of our, what we refer to as resident partners. So BAE, Parsons, Peraton, Scientific Research Corporation, Leidos are big tenants in the buildings where we operate out of. So there are some unique internship opportunities that exist for those populations as well.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Also, from a geopolitical side, there's some tangential ways in which we support, and I'll probably outline 3 examples, at least with our students. One is through a program at Waterloo called CryptoWorks 21, which is meant to support cryptographic education and training for the 21st century. And that's sponsored by the Royal Bank of Canada, which is the largest bank in Canada, one of the largest in the world. And the idea there is a certificate program on top of the graduate degree that they're already getting, and it's meant to bridge conventional and post-quantum cryptography tools, assessments, learnings to support these students who are in both of the arms of their graduate degrees, and apply it so that they can get hired and start to implement these things into our large-scale institutions that are international. And one of the ways in which they interact with companies is not necessarily from a research and development perspective, but from an HR and business perspective, because technically they're already there. They're going to be hired, but they need to be able to tell the right departments within the organization, the right business, why they should be hired. And so we bring them in that way. The other thing is CPI co-led something called the National Cybersecurity Consortium, which is currently a non-for-profit entity that applied to Canada's Innovation, Science and Economic Development arm of the government to get $80 million to support private organizations within Canada and around the world for commercialization training and research. And a core component of that will be how our students interact with these private companies and organizations, and what's interesting is government. So the idea is it's not just private organizations that are going to be benefiting, or academic institutions, but also the government, like different arms of the government, like law enforcement. We have an organization we're working with that works with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and Ontario Provincial Police, and they create technologies that are there to support them, and it will be leveraged through the NCC. And then I had a third one, and I've now forgotten.
I'm with you. We were having a competition before this panel of who got up the earliest to fly here today, so you're seeing some of that come out. And if it occurs to you, we'll circle back.
For sure.
And it occurs to me that just based on what you've been hearing, there's a lot of ways I feel like that universities, that community colleges can shape some of these larger conversations, right? I'm thinking about IU, for example. We were the first university in the world to back the Paris call for trust and security in cyberspace back in 2018, when it came out. We do a lot of international capacity building work through the clinic with, Kosovo, Ghana. I took a team of students to Estonia to SciCon, this past June. But let's face it, as everybody in the audience knows, as much as we can do to kind of widen the aperture, to give more of these opportunities for students, it's all to the good, but there's just such a massive need out there, right? And if you've been hearing about some ways we can help address that through micro-credentials, through certificates, I think there's a lot more that can be done there, but I'm wondering if you could each reflect next, before I think we have to close here pretty soon, unfortunately, on what more you feel like universities, can and should be doing to bridge these divides between the public and private sectors, to do more to raise awareness. It is still Cybersecurity Awareness Month after all. And to end on something of an optimistic note, if you have any reflections, this is my third CFF. The last two times I was asked to talk about cyber peace, which is my own kind of research area. And it's fun to end on an optimistic note, or maybe a pessimistic note, we'll see, right? But what hope do you each have for some version of cyber peace going forward? We've seen some positive developments, but we've seen some big steps back as well in the last few years. So another grab bag, but feel free to take any of those that might be of interest. Colin, maybe the third one occurred to you, which would be a great way to.
It did, and it somewhat overlaps, but positive. Post-quantum cryptography is real, and it will protect your data. And we just need to incentivize organizations to adopt. And there are already small companies being spun out of the University of Waterloo through investment that are supporting that messaging and that technology implementation. And it's going to take, like the last panel, the emerging technology panel said, it's going to take 10 years to get things like that implemented. Maybe we'll have the time because quantum computers aren't there. But I think the other positive thing is governments and societies are moving, are moving towards respecting the privacy of your data to a greater degree than what has been seen. Examples include GDPR in Europe, and in my humble opinion, I don't think it went far enough. And some of the ideas that were behind that are starting to be researched, the idea of a data market, data ownership. And when you think about the ramifications of being able to own your own data that you have on Google, on Facebook, on Twitter, like truly own it. The technology exists for you to put it into a box, so to speak, and sell it. Create a true data market, sell it to Google, sell it to Facebook so that they can, right now they're using it for free. You're giving it away for free. We are giving it away for free. And they're making tons of money out of it. And I think there's a part of the structure there in society where a lot of companies look at cybersecurity and privacy as a negative externality, and they don't respect the value of that data until it's gone. Some companies do respect it because those are the ones that make a ton of money out of it. But if you can create a policy from government point of view, a regulatory regime that allows for data ownership, individuals can be educated about what's going on with their own data, and that in turn also supports a proper cybersecurity community from an individual level, and that would also translate to an organization that has to respect your data. And I think as we start to see governments understand the importance of data, not only infrastructure-based data and financial data, but individual, then you might start to see greater steps forward than just the GDPR. So I'm hopeful for that.
So I want to focus on new and innovative ways of developing the cybersecurity workforce and starting with defining the cybersecurity workforce in a much broader fashion. I firmly believe that everyone who goes through school, whether we're talking about K-12 or some type of university, needs to have some level of education in cybersecurity. We don't let people graduate if they don't take English classes. We don't let people graduate if they don't take basic science classes or math classes. I believe that the same ought to be said for cybersecurity, and we can accomplish that in a couple of different ways. One is recognizing the value of the different components that we have of curricular items that can be integrated and infused throughout the curriculum so that they are incorporated in all of the different courses that students take. But the other is to develop a base level, a zero level course that is a gen ed requirement, that is even pass fail, but is something that every student must take in order to graduate. And so I firmly believe that and think that's one thing that we have to continue to push on.
It's part of digital citizenship, perhaps.
Exactly.
I can't echo enough how much I agree with the remarks that have been made. I will say, Dr. White in the earlier session made a remark about the impact that educational entities like the technical college system and the university system have in their local communities. And one of the things, to end on a positive note, that came out of this artificial intelligence and manufacturing grant. So that was part of Build Back Better, a $1 billion initiative. $65 million went through the Georgia Tech initiative. Is how many units of the technical college system and the university system collected to participate in that initiative. And so we really will have a statewide footprint. And actually, it's bigger than statewide. It spills over into South Carolina, but we're happy for that, and we're happy with that program. And so I think higher ed and K through 12 and the technical college system have all subscribed and bought into the need and very interested in getting after the policies and workforce pipeline that are necessary to advance it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And two just final points from me. For anybody interested in cyber peace, we have the edited volume, first ever one come out through Cambridge Press. It's open access, so it's free to download. And for anybody interested in the digital badge that Val was mentioning, just go to cyberfuturefoundation.org/education, and you can find out more and sign up there. Please join me in thanking our distinguished panelists. Excellent discussion.
Well, thank you all. This was a power-packed